Well, Boris, thank you very much. Thank you. Good afternoon to everybody, and thank you, Boris, for not only a very generous welcome, but literally for a very warm welcome to London. And I particularly congratulate you again on your appointment as the Foreign Secretary. I also want to thank Prime Minister May. I'm particularly grateful to her for taking time to meet with me earlier to convey her where she conveyed her gratitude for President Obama's conversation with her, and we expressed our gratitude for the strong relationship between our countries. And we had a very frank and substantive discussion this morning. We had a very frank and substantive discussion today. But this now is the second day in a row that I am seeing Boris Johnson, and we will be seeing each other in Washington on Wednesday and Thursday. So we're off to a fast start in terms of addressing the challenges that we face. I also am grateful to the Prime Minister for her strongly stated, very pronounced commitment to living up to the special relationship between the United States and Great Britain, and Boris has just reiterated that now. We all saw also through her very swift actions as she formed her government without delay that she is clearly ready to hit the ground running, and that was certainly my impression in the conversation that I had with her today. One thing that also struck me from the Prime Minister's first comments in office was her commitment to the precious bonds, as she called them, among citizens, communities, and the regions of this country. And for all of us who have been wondering about what has been taking place in terms of both the votes and the politics of the country, that is reassuring and important. In that spirit, I've returned to London today to reaffirm ourselves the special and unbreakable ties between the United States and the United Kingdom. And these are more than words, folks. I don't want to just say them. They're not just the words of diplomacy. They really aren't. This is a genuine expression of a feeling of friendship. And it is built up over years and years of common sacrifice, common endeavor, common interests, common values that have been shared consistently between us. I think that it is clear that no shift in administrations, and I'm speaking for us either, in either of our countries, is going to alter or undermine the bonds that we have. And the reason for that is very basic. Our alliance is rooted in the ties of family, language, culture, common interests, shared values, the history of the last century, the sacrifices we made together to build the international structure that we live by today, a structure of rule of law, and a belief in open markets, in democratic governance, in human rights, personal rights, and freedom, tolerance, and equality. And whether it's people's safety and security being threatened as it was today on a train by a young person with an axe, or by a deranged and somehow inspired individual getting in a truck and mowing down countless numbers of people, or any of the other horrible visions that the world has had visited on it over the course of the last several years, the fact is none of those things are going to be lessened, diminished, and our commitment to them, likewise, will remain as strong as ever. So the fact is that the United States of America depends on a strong United Kingdom. We mean united. And it depends also on an engaged United Kingdom. There is occasion after occasion in my tenure as Secretary of State where the presence of the United Kingdom, the involvement of your Foreign Secretary, whether it was William Hague, with whom I first began, or whether it was then Philip Hammond, we have consistently been able to work together to do things that have made a difference to the safety of people on this planet. And that is particularly pronounced in the Iran nuclear agreement and in the climate change agreement we reached in Paris. As I said in Brussels, we also depend on a close relationship with the European Union. And as Britain and the EU begin negotiating the new terms of their partnership, America is rooting for and will do all we can to try to encourage and assist in the development of the smoothest possible transition and a highly integrated and collaborative UK-EU relationship. Now, in my meetings today, I was gratified by the reassurances that I heard from Prime Minister May and from Foreign Secretary Johnson. I am convinced that this UK government intends to lead as strongly as ever within NATO, the UN Security Council, the G7, the G20, the Counter-Daesh Coalition, which will meet in Washington in a couple of days, and they will do so on behalf of international security as well as the security of the people of Britain, as well as for stability and prosperity, and on behalf of all of us in the democratic community of nations. I think we all count on the role that the UK can play, on the contribution that it can make, and we rely on it to play a central role in global affairs, cooperating on a wide range of pressing issues. And I don't think there is a time, I speak for the United States, when we have been confronted by as many different areas and regions with challenges, all of them with an impact on global security, all of them needing a response simultaneously. And for the United States, we are more engaged in more places simultaneously than at any time in American history. We talked briefly today, and we talked a little yesterday, about the challenge that is posed by Daesh, ISIL, and other violent extremist groups, and also about the progress that we are making against Daesh in Iraq and Syria, Libya, and elsewhere. We shared ideas also about the reforms that are necessary in Ukraine and how we can move to fully implement Minsk and what is needed both by Russia and the Ukrainians in order to move forward in the Minsk process. And we are committed to doing so. We talked about the Middle East and about recent events in Turkey, obviously, and about the importance of implementing both the Paris Climate Exchange Agreement and the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action with Iran. Later today, as Boris mentioned, we are going to be gathering with our fellow foreign ministers, first with a smaller group that we will talk about Syria, and then subsequently we will meet with our Arab colleagues to talk about Yemen, both of which we think we have a possibility of making progress on. I intend to provide an update on my trip to Moscow and negotiations with President Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov, and the concrete steps that the U.S. and Russia are planning to take. We are still planning. I talked with Foreign Minister Lavrov again today. We both believe that we have an understanding of the direction we're going in and what needs to be achieved, and our teams will meet shortly in order to continue to do that, in order to bolster the cessation of hostilities, and in order to increase our capacity to fight back against al-Qaeda, which is Nusra, as well as to fight back against ISIL. We will also do everything in our power to improve the delivery of food, medicine, water, incredibly essential humanitarian needs that need to be met. And ultimately, and I met today here in London with Staffan de Mistura to talk about the role the UN needs to play and will play as we go forward in this process. This evening, we have a dinner that will deal with Yemen and how we can further the process in Kuwait and advance the prospects for an agreement that brings the Yemeni people the peace and security that they need and deserve. So that's scratching the surface of regions and challenges that we face, but they are some of the most pressing. And I know that Boris is fully prepared to and ready to jump into this agenda. I appreciate the commitments he has made and his readiness to see to it that this steady relationship of ours continues with the same sense of purpose and the same commitment to the values that we share. I just close by saying to you, and I don't want to, overdo this, but on the other hand, it's not a small deal. It's particularly not a small deal when you're just, a few meters away from the bunker and the place from which Winston Churchill guided this nation and the free world together with Roosevelt and others through the war and through a great challenge against fascism, and how together we then went on to win the Cold War, and the difference that that has made to so many nations that today are democratic.
Absolutely right.
Because of it. More democratic nations in the world than any time in history. So I just point out that when times have been tough and we have faced them together, we have listened to the words of Winston Churchill, who spoke to a joint session of Congress about what can be achieved by British and Americans working together, heart and hand. So that's our intention. The challenges today are more varied, they're more complex, they require different responses, they're less clear-cut in many ways, and they have a mix of religion and sectarianism and clash of culture and history and modernity that was not part of an age-old struggle of nation-states in their competition for territory and dominion. So this is a different time, and it requires different thinking. And I welcome a colleague who I know is committed by education and career and thinking to play his part in our efforts to meet this particular challenge. Thank you.
Thank you very much.